What if the most shocking part of the 1970s was how normal it all seemed? Things that would cause outrage today were just part of everyday life back then. This is not about fashion. It is about freedom, danger, and a whole lot of how did we survive that? Let's dive into the normal things from the 1970s that are no longer allowed. Riding in the back of pickup trucks on the highway was just another part of growing up in the 1970s. No seatbelt, no harness, no parental panic attack, just wind in your face and the open road ahead. If you were lucky, you got the wheel well spot so you had something to lean against. If you were really lucky, the driver didn't take sharp turns like they were auditioning for a car chase movie. This wasn't just for country kids either. Suburbs, small towns, even city outskirts, kids and teens would pile into the back like it was a parade float made of rust and dreams. It sounds completely reckless now because, well, it kind of was. But back then, freedom came first. Safety regulations? A suggestion at best. You needed to haul 6 kids to baseball practice in a truck meant for 3? You made it work. You needed a last-minute ride to the store? Hop in the back. And nobody worried about speed limits or sudden stops. But as safety studies piled up and laws tightened, this practice slowly hit the brakes. Now, in most states, it is straight up illegal. And honestly, it is a miracle more kids did not go flying out onto the freeway. Still, back then, it was a badge of honor. No one was wearing helmets. You just held on to the side and hoped your older cousin didn't start doing donuts. And speaking of things that could land you in the emergency room, let's talk about what toy companies were casually selling to kids like it was no big deal. Selling lawn darts at toy stores was, without exaggeration, a decision made by people who had never thrown one themselves. These weren't soft plush toys. These were literal missiles with metal tips, marketed as a family-friendly backyard game. Toss them high in the air, try to land them in a circle, and try not to take out someone's eye in the process. And in the 1970s, it worked like a charm. Every summer, Block Party had them. Every kid had a cousin who ended up with a dart embedded in the ground 2 inches from their foot. It was all fun and games until, well, it wasn't. But the real excitement came from the absolute unpredictability of where those things would land. Wind gust, curveball, unsteady grip, friendly fire, toddlers waddling through the yard during a game? Not ideal. Maybe because they figured a few scratches built character. Maybe because they were busy chain smoking or flipping burgers on the grill. Either way, these darts stayed in circulation far longer than common sense should have allowed. Eventually, injuries, and we're talking serious ones, piled up. Hospital visits, emergency surgeries, lawsuits, the whole deal. And in the late 1980s, the government finally banned the sale of lawn darts for good. But if you grew up in the 1970s, there's a solid chance you knew someone who had them, or threw them, or got grazed by one. And yet, they were just another Saturday afternoon in the yard. Now imagine playing with weapons disguised as toys while your parents smoked indoors with the doctor's approval. Yeah, that was a thing too. Smoking in hospital waiting rooms feels like something out of a bad movie script now, but in the 1970s it was completely real. You could walk into a hospital, sit down under a bright no smoking sign, light a cigarette, and no one would bat an eye. Nurses did it, doctors did it, patients waiting for surgery did it. Visitors lit up next to vending machines and hospital gift shops. And yes, this was a hospital, a place people went to get better. But the air in the waiting room was thick enough to slice. People genuinely believed smoking helped ease nerves, even if they were in a place surrounded by oxygen tanks and respiratory therapists. There were ashtrays on every table and smoke curling up into the fluorescent lights. If someone had a baby in the maternity wing, you celebrated with a smoke right there in the lobby. It was considered a form of hospitality. Some hospitals even had designated smoking lounges, like it was an airport. The irony is hard to ignore. Of course, as the science caught up and lawsuits started piling in, hospitals began banning indoor smoking. What seemed normal was finally recognized as dangerous, not just to the smoker but everyone around them. Nowadays, the idea of someone sparking up in a hospital sounds like a public health emergency. But back then, it was just part of the scenery. And if you think that's wild, wait until you hear what kind of errands kids were running for their parents. No identification card required. Kids buying cigarettes for their parents was so casual in the 1970s that store clerks barely even looked up. You could be 7 years old, barely tall enough to see over the counter, and still walk out with a pack of cigarettes tucked into your pocket. No ID, no questions, no raised eyebrows. All you needed was a note from your mom. And half the time, not even that. "A pack of Virginia Slims, please. My dad wants the soft pack." That was a perfectly acceptable sentence coming from a child. Some kids even took pride in knowing their parents' brand. They could identify a Marlboro from a mile away. They knew which cigarettes had menthol, which ones had filters, and which ones were cheapest. It was like a weird rite of passage. One day you're playing with building blocks, the next you're sent to the corner store to keep your dad's addiction going. Most kids did not even think it was strange. It was just one more chore on the list. Back then, cigarettes were everywhere. Commercials, restaurants, even cartoons sometimes. So the idea of kids buying them did not seem too far-fetched. But once public health started catching up and laws began to change, this practice faded fast. These days, a cashier would get fired, maybe even fined, for selling to someone underage. Back in the 1970s, it was just another Wednesday. Of course, if your parents did not feel like sending you to the store, they might just thumb it themselves. Let's talk about the golden age of hitchhiking and why it vanished so fast. Hitchhiking as a totally normal travel option was not just for free spirits or wandering poets in the 1970s. It was a legitimate mode of transportation. No car? No problem. Stick out your thumb and wait for a kind stranger to pull over. It was something teenagers, college students, and even older adults did all the time. You'd see someone standing on the side of the highway with a duffel bag, maybe a handwritten sign that said, "Headed north," and no one thought it was weird. For a while, it was even considered kind of romantic, like a symbol of trust in your fellow human, the kind of thing people wrote folk songs about. There were books, guides, and even safety tips passed around for successful hitchhiking. You learned the good spots to stand, how to look approachable, and what to do if someone creepy pulled over. Hitchhiking was not just accepted, it was encouraged in some circles. Some people even used it to get to and from work if the distance was not too crazy. But naturally, it did not stay sunshine and smiles forever. The danger was always there. It just took a while before it hit national headlines. As crime reports and horror stories started stacking up, people grew less trusting. Hitchhiking laws changed. Stranger danger campaigns launched. What was once seen as adventurous became straight-up risky. These days, sticking your thumb out on the highway is more likely to get you a side-eye than a ride. And while hitchhiking was fading into the rearview mirror, another threat was hiding in plain sight, tucked into every household's favorite household item. Let's talk about ironing board pads, specifically the kind lined with asbestos. Back in the 1970s, asbestos was the miracle material nobody questioned. It was fireproof, heatproof, durable, and completely packed into everyday items like ironing board pads. If you were ironing your Sunday best or pressing collars for school, chances are you were standing over a big square of asbestos without even knowing it. The logic back then was that if something could handle heat, it was good. And asbestos? It could handle just about anything, except your lungs. That stuff did not just stay in the pad. It crumbled, it flaked, it floated right up into the air and got breathed in over and over again. Still, no one thought twice. Moms would lean over the ironing board, kids running around, windows shut, and steam rising up like a sauna of danger. It was not until years later that we figured out those innocent little chores came with a free side of cancer risk. And speaking of leaving kids in questionable situations, sometimes they were not in the house at all. Sometimes they were left in the car, alone, with the windows rolled up. Leaving kids in the car while you shopped was not only common, it was considered efficient parenting. You would crack the window a little, toss a snack in the back seat, and tell them not to touch the gear shift. That was it. No seat warmers, no climate control, just the burning hot vinyl seats and a juice box to keep them busy. You would run into the grocery store, the post office, maybe even the mall, and come back 20 minutes later like it was nothing. Sometimes the kid was asleep, sometimes reading, sometimes playing with the door locks like it was a game. There were no viral videos or angry phone calls to the authorities. People assumed kids were tougher back then, or maybe they just really trusted that nothing would go wrong. Sure, you would get the occasional warning to not talk to strangers through the car window, but that was the extent of it. It was all part of the era's free-range approach to parenting. And while the kids were stuck in the car, the adults, they were likely sneaking a break of their own, somewhere smoky and very much on school property. Teachers smoking in the faculty lounge was basically a sitcom trope come to life. Walk past the teacher's lounge in any school during the 1970s and you would catch a whiff of menthol and burned-out chalkboard markers. It was like a secret smokers club there. You had stressed-out history teachers chain smoking next to gym coaches lighting up before the third period. Nobody questioned it. In fact, it was more suspicious if a teacher wasn't smoking. The lounge itself had this weird aura, like it was a world apart from the rest of the school. Kids knew better than to look in. It was off limits. But the smoke always found its way out, curling into the hallways like a reminder that adults had their own rules. There were ashtrays on every table, cigarette butts in half-filled coffee cups, and no ventilation to speak of. The fact that it was a place of learning somehow made it all the more surreal. And yet, out on the playground, kids were doing something just as bold. Drinking straight from the garden hose, no questions asked. Nothing hit quite like a blast of warm hose water on a summer afternoon. If you were a kid in the 1970s, chugging water straight from the garden hose was basically a rite of passage. You would be out playing tag, riding bikes, or building questionable tree forts and suddenly realize you were dying of thirst. No one ran inside for a water bottle. You went for the hose. You cranked the knob, let the sun-heated water blast out for a few seconds, and then put your mouth right on the nozzle. No one asked where the hose had been or what might be growing inside it. Rubbery taste? Totally normal. Mystery specks? Built character. Parents barely noticed unless you soaked your shirt. Nobody thought twice about what kinds of chemicals were leaching from the plastic or whether small bugs had made it their home. We just drank and kept running. But when it came to food, there were rules. Except during Halloween, when those rules took a break and you took candy from strangers with zero hesitation. Back before Halloween became a yearly anxiety fest, taking unmarked candy from a neighbor was just how the night worked. You rang a doorbell, yelled, "Trick or treat," and got handed whatever someone had lying around. Loose jelly beans? Great. Homemade fudge and wax paper? Even better. The idea that candy needed to be sealed and tamper-proof had not fully caught on yet. No one was worried about needles or poison. Your biggest fear was getting a box of raisins. Parents did not comb through your haul under a flashlight. They just told you not to eat it all at once. The neighbor handing out popcorn balls or wrapped caramels was not suspicious. They were the cool house. Trust was the currency of the neighborhood, and if someone put effort into a treat, you respected it. Now, we wrap everything in layers of packaging and double-check labels like candy is a security threat. And after all that sugar buzz, you already knew where the real party was, under a disco ball, skates on, and lyrics your parents probably should have listened to more closely. Roller rinks in the 1970s were the ultimate hangout. You had the flashing lights, the disco ball, and enough polyester to start a fire just by walking. But the real wild card? The music. No one blinked when rinks blasted explicit disco tracks over the loudspeakers while underage kids zipped around with sticky slushies in hand. The lyrics were often loaded with innuendo, suggestive metaphors, or sometimes just straight-up raunchy lines. But hey, if it had a funky beat, it made the playlist. It was not about lyrics, it was about the vibe. You had 8-year-olds skating in a circle to songs that would raise eyebrows today at a high school dance. And this was not just some fringe rink in the middle of nowhere. This was normal. Parents sat in the stands eating nachos while Donna Summer or the Village People gave their best PG-13 performance. It was a time before clean edits, before parental warnings, before anybody really asked, "Hey, should we be playing this for kids?" Spoiler alert, nobody asked. But if you think that was questionable, let's talk about what came on the TV while kids were watching cartoons on a Saturday morning, right between episodes of Scooby-Doo and The Jetsons. Saturday morning cartoons were a sacred ritual. You poured yourself a bowl of cereal, plopped down in front of the television, and prepared to spend the next few hours in a sugar-fueled animation binge. But sprinkled between all those talking animals and laser-blasting space battles? Beer ads? That's right. Alcohol companies had no problem promoting their newest brew to an audience still wearing footy pajamas. You could go from He-Man saving the universe to a slow-motion pour of foamy beer into a frosted mug, all in the same commercial break. And these were not vague nods to adult life. We are talking full-on beer jingles with catchy tunes and smiling actors, clinking glasses in backyard barbecues. Kids grew up humming these tunes without even knowing what they were singing about. To the networks, airtime was airtime. If it sold, it played. No one raised a red flag. Parents were more worried about how many Pop-Tarts you ate than whether your favorite cartoon was brought to you by a six-pack of light beer. And when the commercials ended, you ran outside with your friends. No shoes, no helmets, just two wheels and a scraped knee waiting to happen. Biking in the 1970s was a full-body commitment to chaos. You grabbed your bike, usually a hand-me-down with faded paint and maybe a card clipped to the spokes, and hit the road. No helmet, no reflective gear. Most of the time, not even shoes. Kids would ride barefoot through gravel and glass like they were immune to injury. If you had sneakers on, you were overdressed. The banana seat was your throne, and your kingdom was every cracked sidewalk and pothole-filled alley in town. No one talked about concussions. Helmets were something you only saw in the Olympics or in comic books. You fell, you bled, you got back on. And this was not just a neighborhood thing. Some kids would bike across entire towns to visit friends or buy candy from the gas station. You might have a baseball card flapping in the spokes and a backpack full of nothing but a peanut butter sandwich and dreams. It was reckless, it was wild, and it was glorious. But if you think biking without shoes was bold, wait until you remember how families traveled together, jammed shoulder to shoulder in a station wagon with zero seatbelts in sight. The family station wagon was more than just a car. It was a rolling apartment on wheels. It had wood paneling, questionable suspension, and one golden rule: there were no seatbelts in the way back. That rear-facing back seat was the stuff of legends. You would sit back there waving at traffic, making faces at strangers, and maybe getting a little carsick if the ride got too bumpy. Up front, Mom and Dad argued about directions while the kids in the middle wrestled over snacks. And in the back, chaos. You could pile in 8 kids if you tried hard enough. Nobody thought to buckle up because most of the time, there was nothing to buckle into. The idea of a 5-point harness or a booster seat was light years away. If you stopped too fast, you just braced yourself on the seat in front of you, or on your sibling's face. Road trips were long, uncomfortable, and totally unregulated. And speaking of things that were dangerously unregulated, let's talk about those home science kits. You know, the ones with actual radioactive material inside. Yep, you heard that right. In the 1970s, you could go to the store and buy a science kit that came with actual radioactive samples. Glowing rocks, uranium ore, the whole radioactive shebang. These kits were sold as educational tools, a way to spark curiosity in young minds. And they did, right before they sparked some very serious health concerns. Back then, no one batted an eye. Parents figured if it came in a box with a smiling cartoon scientist on the front, it had to be safe. Kids were in their rooms waving Geiger counters around like they were playing laser tag, all while absorbing trace amounts of nuclear material. It was science. It was cool. It was totally wild. Of course, by the time the risks caught up to the curiosity, these kits had already found their way into thousands of households. That glow-in-the-dark magic? Yeah, turns out it was not so magical after all. But if you thought glowing uranium in your closet was risky, wait until you hear what people kept in their trucks, in full view, completely unlocked, and nobody cared. Back in the 1970s, Seeing a loaded rifle sitting in the back window of someone's truck was about as normal as spotting a pair of fuzzy dice on the rearview mirror. Unlocked, on display, and sitting in plain sight while the owner grabbed groceries or filled up at the gas station. No one broke a sweat over it. In fact, if you locked your truck, some people might have thought you were paranoid. Gun racks were a staple, especially in rural areas. People drove to school, to work, or to Sunday lunch with a rifle in the rear window like it was just part of the interior design. Firearm safety? It existed, but it was more of a handshake agreement between neighbors than an enforced rule. Everyone trusted that nobody would touch it and that the owner knew what they were doing. Kids knew better than to mess with it, and adults figured that visibility somehow equaled responsibility. And speaking of kids doing things on their own, imagine walking into a doctor's office alone with no insurance card, no parent, and still getting treated. There was a time when teenagers could walk into a doctor's office, sign their name on a clipboard, and be seen. No questions asked, no ID, no copay, no adult supervising, just a quiet waiting room, a nurse calling your name, and a medical professional ready to help. Whether it was for a sprained wrist or something a little more private, kids and teens had the strange luxury of medical independence. Sometimes it was out of necessity. Parents worked long hours or had no transportation. Other times it was a rite of passage, proof you could handle things on your own. The receptionist might glance up, ask for your date of birth, and that was it. No forms, no guardian, and definitely no awkward phone calls asking for permission. It was a strange mix of trust, minimal red tape, and a time when no one worried about malpractice lawsuits over a sore throat. Of course, while you waited, you might pass the time chewing on your favorite toy, completely unaware it was painted in enough lead to make your childhood glow. Lead paint was everywhere in the 1970s. On toys, on cribs, on furniture, even on those colorful alphabet blocks you were supposed to learn from. The brighter the color, the more dangerous it probably was. Kids teethed on crib railings, gnawed on toy cars, and chewed through entire building blocks without anyone giving it a second thought. That sweet, smooth paint finish? Packed with lead. And the worst part? Manufacturers knew it was toxic for decades before anyone made a real fuss. Parents assumed if something was sold in a toy store, it had to be safe. But lead was cheap, durable, and made colors pop. That made it a go-to choice for everything from baby rattles to painted toy soldiers. It was not until the damage was done, learning delays, neurological issues, and widespread recalls, that people started paying attention. Until then, those shiny red tricycles and pastel baby beds were just another part of a normal childhood. And if you think the toys were risky, wait until you hear about the do-it-yourself solution for trash. Spoiler alert, it involved fire. Home incinerators were a suburban staple in the 1970s. Back before waste management became a scheduled utility, people just burned their trash in the backyard, in a big metal drum or a stone-lined pit. If it was flammable, it went in. We are talking everything from food scraps and junk mail to broken appliances and mystery liquids from the garage. No sorting, no filters, no second thoughts. It was normal to see a steady column of gray smoke rising from someone's backyard while they stood nearby with a garden hose, just in case. The smell was unique. A pungent blend of scorched rubber, burnt plastic, and last night's leftovers. If it was trash day, it meant you were lighting something on fire. Kids helped, pets watched, and nobody called the fire department unless the flames got too high. It was messy, a little hazardous, and absolutely standard. But not everything you did for money back then was dangerous. Sometimes, all it took was a walk down the road and a few empty soda bottles. Collecting glass soda bottles was one of the earliest ways kids earned pocket money in the 1970s. You grabbed a wagon or a bike and scoured the streets for discarded bottles. Ditches, parks, parking lots. You name it. Once you had enough, you took them to the local store and cashed them in for a few coins per bottle. That money went straight into candy, gum, or maybe a trip to the arcade. It was basically the recycling hustle before recycling got trendy. Stores had shelves behind the counter stacked with sticky returns waiting to be sent back to the bottling plant. Kids knew which brands paid more and which shop owners were generous with rounding up. It was equal parts treasure hunt and side gig. And it taught a weird kind of work ethic. If you wanted that pack of baseball cards, you had to earn it, one discarded soda bottle at a time. And while kids were out making change the old-fashioned way, trouble was always a paddle swing away at school. Because back then, discipline came with a name and a handle. Back in the 1970s, a trip to the vice principal's office could mean more than just a stern lecture. It might mean a spanking, with an actual wooden paddle. And yes, some of them had names. These paddles were not hidden or secret. They were proudly displayed on the wall, hanging like trophies. The Persuader, Board of Education, or just plain Big Bertha. Discipline was physical, public, and totally legal. The school staff did not need your parents' signature or approval. They just needed a reason. Disrupt class, chew gum, forget your homework 3 days in a row? You could end up bent over a desk while the vice principal counted out swats. Some kids even got sent home with notes saying how many licks they got. And most parents, they backed it up. If you got paddled at school, there was a decent chance you would get another one at home for good measure. It was all considered part of growing up, learning respect, obedience, and how to sit down slowly the next day. The idea was simple. Fear equals discipline. Whether or not it worked is up for debate, but back then, nobody batted an eye. And when school let out, kids blew off steam in the most logical way possible, by setting off small explosives with no adult supervision. There was a time when you could walk into your local corner store, hand over a few coins, and walk out with enough fireworks to recreate a 4th of July finale. No ID check, no questions, just you, a brown paper bag, and a handful of literal M80s. These were not the tame, sparkly fountains you see today. These were small sticks of dynamite. Toss them in a mailbox, a trash can, or a patch of dry grass, and you had a front row seat to chaos. Firecrackers, bottle rockets, Roman candles, it was all fair game. Vendors sold them like candy, and kids treated them like toys. You would find some old soup can, place the firework inside, and try to launch it into orbit. Injuries were common. So were stories of someone almost losing a finger. But that just added to the excitement. The louder the boom, the better the story. No one wore safety goggles. No one read instructions. And if something misfired, you just tried again. With a little luck, a burnt eyebrow was the worst of it. Of course, if you wanted something even more volatile, you did not need to hit up a fireworks stand. You just needed a chemistry set. Chemistry sets in the 1970s were not just educational. They were dangerously fun. You could walk into a toy store and buy a box full of real, reactive ingredients: sulfur, potassium nitrate, even magnesium strips, and hydrochloric acid in tiny glass bottles. Parents assumed it was harmless learning, but what they were actually buying was the makings of a backyard bomb lab. You could create smoke bombs, stink bombs, and even small explosive reactions, all from the comfort of your garage. The instruction booklets encouraged experimentation. Want to make invisible ink? Here is a recipe. Want to cause a minor explosion? Here is how you do that too. Just mix and run. Safety warnings were practically non-existent. Protective gear? Optional. And if you did not have one of these sets, you knew a kid who did. Entire friend groups would gather around the backyard picnic table and take turns lighting fuses or stirring suspicious mixtures in old mason jars. Teachers might give a nod of approval if you mentioned it in science class, not realizing you were basically learning pyrotechnics on the side, and while the smoke cleared, your parents were already loading you into the back seat for a night at the drive-in. R rating be damned. Going to the drive-in as a kid in the 1970s was an experience, but not necessarily a wholesome one. Parents would pull the station wagon into a gravel lot, pop the trunk, and let the kids sprawl out with blankets and snacks while they enjoyed the movie up front. And the movie? Often R-rated, sometimes violently R-rated. No one enforced age restrictions. If you could see the screen and hear the speaker box, congratulations, you were part of the audience. That meant horror films, action flicks, and adult comedies with scenes that left a lot of kids wide-eyed and confused. Sometimes your parents would say, "Close your eyes for this part," but let's be real, No kid ever did. It was all part of the atmosphere. You had sticky floors, fogged-up windows, and that weird buzzing speaker hanging from the half-broken window. But it was also the only time kids and adults shared the same movie night without filters. It was a strange mix of bonding and accidental trauma. You might leave the drive-in dreaming about monsters or quoting lines you definitely should not repeat at school. But no summer adventure was complete until you found yourself somewhere you absolutely should not be, like climbing into old refrigerators at the local dump. Yes, this actually happened. In the 1970s, kids turned the town dump into a playground. And the ultimate dare? Climbing into a discarded refrigerator. Old fridges with heavy doors and metal handles were just sitting out in the open. To a kid, it looked like a secret fort or a personal spaceship. You would hop in, pull the door shut, and try to freak out your friends by pretending you had vanished. The real danger? Those doors locked from the outside. If no one let you out, you stayed in. That is not just scary, it was deadly. Public service ads started warning families about it, but by then, the stories had already circulated. Still, it did not stop kids from exploring junkyards and landfills like they were treasure troves. There was a thrill in discovering an old washing machine, a shattered television, or yes, an abandoned fridge. Scrapes, tetanus risks, maybe a raccoon surprise. It was all part of the fun. Parents usually just said, "Be careful," and left it at that. Because back then, even danger came with a little freedom. Barbie Rollerblade, a toy that sparkled with the promise of fun, took a sharp turn towards safety concerns in 1992. These dolls, equipped with rollerblades that emitted real sparks, captured the imagination of many until the potential fire hazard they posed came to light. The recall of Barbie rollerblade skates underscored the complexities of integrating dynamic features into toys and the paramount importance of thorough safety testing. This incident not only highlighted the challenges of innovation in toy design, but also reinforced the enduring commitment to safeguarding the joy and well-being of children. This one was a real doozy. Hello Kitty's a brand worth working with, right? Gets the kids, gets the girls, doubles as a niche fun internet trend. Bit of a mainstream one now, though. At least that's what I imagine McDonald's was thinking when it came out with the Hello Kitty whistle toys, but this time they had the concept and execution down pretty well. The part where they went awfully wrong was in the assembling and manufacturing. These little whistles had detachable parts, and they also had lead paint in them, which was known for causing severe health hazards. The parts were often dangerous too because while blowing the whistle, kids could accidentally suck a part in and swallow it, and mind you, 2.5 million units of these were sold. At least 2 cases were reported, and it ended up with McDonald's having to recall these items, which was a massive corporate fiasco. Safe to say, that was one collectively unhappy meal. The Slip and Slide, another Wham-O classic, epitomizes summer fun with its straightforward yet exhilarating concept. This water-lubricated slide offers an adrenaline rush as users glide across the lawn. Yet, it's accompanied by a cautionary note, especially for adult users, due to recalls linked to severe spinal and neck injuries. This situation illuminates the complexities of toy design, stressing the necessity for age-appropriate products and explicit usage guidelines. Despite these challenges, the Slip and Slide remains a beloved fixture of summer, symbolizing the toy industry's dedication to merging enjoyment with safety, ensuring playtime is both thrilling and secure for every age. If you have a bit of a sharper eye, you might notice the problem with a lot of the toys we talk about. For example, with the Michael Jordan Fitness Fun toys, instead of leaning into McDonald's identity as a fast food giant, they try to paint it as something it isn't. See, McDonald's is not healthy, nor is it good for you. It's fatty, greasy food that you should ideally be eating once a week, but it's also comfort food that lots of people have grown up with. When they launched the Michael Jordan Fitness Fun toys as part of some of their earliest partnership deals with professional athletes, they tried to move away from that image. McDonald's was getting decent flack for encouraging horrible diet habits in children, so it wanted to partner up with the face of fitness itself at the time. Its idea was a bad jump rope, a really funky watch, and a frisbee with Jordan's face. The Easy Bake Oven, a beloved toy since 1963, found itself under scrutiny in 2007. Known for allowing children to craft their own culinary creations, this seemingly harmless device led to an unexpected danger. Reports of children getting their fingers stuck, with some cases resulting in burns severe enough to necessitate surgery, prompted a massive recall of approximately 1 million units. This incident served as a stark reminder of the evolving understanding of toy safety, leading to a redesigned Easy Bake Oven that prioritized accessibility and safety, ensuring that future chefs could bake without fear.
The Evel Knievel stunt cycle, introduced in the 1970s, allowed kids to recreate the death-defying stunts of America's iconic Daredevil. This toy captured the essence of Evel Knievel's spirit, empowering children to imagine and perform their own spectacular feats. As Evel Knievel's real-life stunts became the stuff of legend, the stunt cycle became a cherished part of many childhoods, a symbol of bravery and exhilaration. Though the spotlight on Evel Knievel has dimmed, the thrill of launching that toy motorcycle and watching it defy obstacles remains a vivid memory, encapsulating the excitement of a bygone era.
The Battlestar Galactica Colonial Viper missile toy, a marvel of the late 70s, brought the excitement of space battles to Earth. However, the small missile parts, designed to launch from the toy, became a source of grave concern following a choking incident that tragically ended in a child's death. This event in 1978 led to a swift recall and served as a critical lesson in the design and safety of toys with small detachable parts. It underscored the importance of foreseeing potential risks in toy design, ultimately influencing stricter safety standards and practices in the toy industry, ensuring that the imagination's flight does not come at the cost of safety. Released in 1989, the Atari Lynx was the first handheld gaming console with a full-color LCD screen. It was a technological marvel for its time, allowing gamers to play vibrant, arcade-style games on the go. Unlike its competitors, the Lynx featured backlit graphics and even allowed players to rotate the screen for left-handed use, a rare consideration in the gaming world. Despite its innovation, the Lynx struggled to gain traction in a market dominated by the Nintendo Game Boy. One major drawback? Its appetite for AA batteries, 6 of them to be exact, that drained faster than a 10-year-old's patience during a long car ride. Still, the Lynx boasted impressive titles like California Games and Chips Challenge, earning it a loyal fan base. Atari marketed the Lynx as a premium device, but its high price and bulky design made it less appealing to the masses. While it never reached the heights of its rivals, the Lynx paved the way for future handheld consoles by pushing the boundaries of portable gaming. Today, it's a cherished collector's item, proof that sometimes being ahead of your time doesn't always pay off in the moment.
In 1967, Light Bright illuminated the creative world of children, offering a mesmerizing way to craft with light and color. This toy combined simple components, colored pegs and black paper, to create glowing pieces of art that captivated the imagination. Light Bright stood out as a beacon of creativity, enabling kids to design luminous masterpieces that brightened any room. Despite the emergence of more advanced toys, the enchantment of creating with Light Bright endures in the hearts of those who grew up with it, a reminder of the joy found in lighting up the dark with just a peg and a little imagination.
In hindsight, the 101 Dalmatians set was one of their better ideas, just done poorly. It involved 101 literal collectible Dalmatians that you could keep gathering for an entire set, except the problem was that it was extremely unrealistic. Think about it. To do that, you would have to eat McDonald's 101 times, assuming you get a different Dalmatian each time, which you won't, in the short time period where this promotion was running. Some people did get lucky, though they were obviously dedicated, and now they can profit off the collection very nicely. It's considered one of their rarest Happy Meal toy sets, and it goes for several hundreds of dollars if you have a complete set. However, the joy of Happy Meals was collecting different sets of toys, which was easy if there was a reasonable amount. If they even did something like 10 Dalmatians per Happy Meal, then it would be a lot more achievable for most kids. In 1982, Mattel unleashed Masters of the Universe toys, and by Christmas of that year, He-Man and his heroic friends were battling Skeletor for dominance in playrooms everywhere. These action figures were an entire universe of epic storytelling, complete with castles, vehicles, and a moral lesson at the end of every animated episode. The figures were known for their muscle-bound designs, bright colors, and impressive accessories. Who could forget He-Man's power sword or Skeletor's havoc staff? Castle Grayskull, the iconic playset, was every kid's dream. Its trapdoors, hidden compartments, and ominous design made it the perfect backdrop for battles between good and evil. Interestingly, the Masters of the Universe franchise was one of the first toy lines to have an accompanying cartoon, flipping the usual toy-to-show formula. The show was a cultural phenomenon, cementing phrases like, "I have the power," into the lexicon of the 80s. Though the line eventually declined in popularity, Masters of the Universe remains a symbol of the decade's over-the-top creativity. Modern reboots and collector's editions keep the spirit alive, but nothing beats the magic of unboxing a brand new He-Man figure on Christmas morning. The worst thing about Popoids was that it really was just a poor man's Lego set. If you could not get a proper Lego set either because your parents did not want you fiddling around with tiny, swallowable plastic parts, then you were just out of luck. Maybe McDonald's thought there was an untapped market, a demographic they had not touched yet in cases like that. Kids longing for Legos but never getting any, so why not ease their woes by including some Popoids as a Happy Meal toy? Except these were discount Legos in every sense of the word. It was just 3 pieces of interconnecting plastic that could not be shaped into much, and when it was, it did not resemble anything either. At least Legos let you make Darth Vader's ship or something. The Water Wiggle by Wham-O, a seemingly innocuous garden hose attachment, promised endless summer fun with its erratic, water-spraying antics. Yet, beneath its playful exterior lurked hidden dangers. In the 1970s, the toy was linked to accidents and injuries, leading to its withdrawal from the market. The Water Wiggle's journey from backyard favorite to safety cautionary tale underscores the critical importance of evaluating playthings for all potential risks, not just those apparent at first glance. This episode in toy history serves as a reminder of the evolving standards of safety that guide the industry, ensuring that the laughter of children playing with water is not overshadowed by preventable hazards. The McDonald's airport toys were actually not too bad, but they were just really uninspiring as far as airplanes go. You have a vehicle whose entire MO is flying, and all you make is a rough outline of it with different colors? That kind of stuff doesn't last long in the unforgiving world of children's toys, where even the best player in the market can be a loser in as little as half a day. They offered 5 planes with this lineup: the Grimace biplane, which was hot pink, the Birdie Bentwing Blazer, the Fry Guy Flyer, the Big Mac helicopter, and the Ronald Seaplane. They did well enough, at least if the standard you hold them to is everything else on this list, but compared to actual successful McDonald's toys, they performed pretty poorly. Maybe if they actually flew for a bit, they'd have been more fun to keep. The saga of lawn darts, or jarts, as they were colloquially known, is a somber chapter in toy history. Introduced in the 1960s, these metal-tipped darts, intended for outdoor play, soon revealed a darker side. After causing numerous injuries and tragically fatalities, lawn darts were banned in 1988 in the United States. This ban served as a watershed moment in toy safety, illustrating the critical need for oversight and regulation in children's playthings. The story of lawn darts remains a powerful reminder of the responsibilities manufacturers and regulators bear in ensuring the well-being of young enthusiasts. Debuting in 1985, Teddy Ruxpin was no ordinary stuffed animal. This animatronic teddy bear could talk and tell stories through cassette tapes inserted into a compartment in its back. For kids, Teddy was a magical friend who brought stories to life. For parents, he was a marvel of 80s tech, and an expensive one at that. Teddy's expressive eyes and moving mouth were cutting-edge technology for the time. He came with a library of storybooks and tapes, encouraging kids to read along as he narrated adventures. Unlike other toys, Teddy Ruxpin felt interactive, bridging the gap between traditional stuffed animals and futuristic robotics. Teddy Ruxpin was the best-selling toy of 1985 and 1986, earning a place in the hearts of millions. Of course, no 80s toy was without its quirks. When batteries ran low, Teddy's voice could slow down to a creepy drawl, unintentionally turning storytime into a horror movie. But for those lucky enough to find Teddy under the Christmas tree, he was more than a simple toy. He was a productive friend.
Launched in the late 70s, Perfection was a game that combined the thrill of speed with the challenge of puzzle solving. Players raced against the clock to fit all the pieces into the correct spots before the timer ran out, causing the board to pop and scatter the pieces. This heart-pounding game was not only entertaining, but also helped develop fine motor skills and quick thinking. Perfection remains a beloved memory for many, encapsulating the tension and excitement of racing against time. Its distinctive pop sound when the timer expired is a nostalgic trigger, recalling moments of laughter, surprise, and the rush to beat the clock.
McDonald's would not let go of this idea, though. It definitely did want to shake off the unhealthy stigma that was attached to the company. Hence, it came up with the Step-It toys. These were basically fitness trackers with neon wraps that you could wear that actually had some basic features and easy controls. However, a lot of critics still did not ease up on Ronald McDonald, claiming that stunts like these were a cheap ploy to draw people's attention away from how unhealthy McDonald's really was for kids. Eventually, they were recalled and discontinued after several customers reported skin irritation from prolonged use. Guess they really need to up the standard on the materials they use for these toys. Launched in 1979 but peaking in the 1980s, the Sony Walkman was the ultimate status symbol for music lovers. For the first time in the history of music, you could listen to your favorite mixtape anywhere, on the bus, at the beach, or during your morning jog. Though, let's face it, jogging was optional. The Walkman's portability and sound quality revolutionized how we consumed music, making it a must-have gift. Sony's marketing was genius. They portrayed the Walkman as a lifestyle choice, not just a gadget. Pair it with those classic foam headphones, and you'd feel like a rock star, even if you were just rewinding your cassette for the 5th time. Sony initially doubted its success, but by the mid-80s, over 50 million units had been sold. The Walkman also defined a generation of rebellious teens, who could forget the classic scene of someone sulking in their room, headphones on, while their parents yelled in the background. It was an escape from reality. And if you've ever used a pencil to rewind a tape, you know the struggle was real. Today, the Walkman's legacy lives on in every portable music player that followed. The Mighty Duck Pucks were a McDonald's set that came out in the 1990s, and they were actually another one of McDonald's famous franchise deals. The Mighty Ducks was this really popular animated show that was reigning the TV ratings at the time, and each toy was designed to look like a plastic puck with added features. Some of these could move, some of them could shoot hockey sticks out, and some of them had wheels. Maybe they took some notes from their past works and realized that interactive elements are the way to go, but they still couldn't succeed in making toy lines that retained the attention of a child. As a result, this one tanked too.
Launched in the mid-1970s, the Astro Ray gun captured the imagination of children fascinated by space and science fiction. This handheld toy, with its flashing lights and futuristic sounds, provided a tangible connection to the cosmic adventures that filled screens and storybooks. Amid the excitement of the space race and the popularity of Star Wars, the Astro Ray gun allowed kids to role-play as space heroes defending the galaxy. While newer technologies eventually replaced these simple toys, the memory of battling through space with just a toy blaster remains a fond recollection for many, a reminder of when adventure required nothing more than imagination and a trigger finger. Tomy Pocket Games arrived in the late 70s, perfectly sized for travel and designed to entertain and challenge. These handheld games were a testament to the power of portable play, offering puzzles and challenges that could turn any car ride or rainy day into an opportunity for fun. Before the dominance of digital handheld games, Tomy Pocket Games were a favorite for their tactile gameplay and the sense of accomplishment they offered. Although they have since faded from the forefront of children's toys, the satisfaction and joy they provided live on, a nod to a time when entertainment was as simple as flipping, twisting, and sliding.
When the Rubik's Cube hit shelves in 1980, it became a global obsession. created by Hungarian architect Erno Rubik, this seemingly simple 3x3 cube was a mind-bending challenge that fascinated kids and adults alike. By 1982, over 100 million Rubik's Cubes had been sold, making it the best-selling puzzle toy of all time. For some, solving the Rubik's Cube was an achievement worthy of bragging rights, a feat to be boasted about at school, work, or social gatherings. For others, it remained a colorful frustration, one that often ended up forgotten in a drawer or abandoned on a shelf. The average person might take hours, days, or never manage to solve it at all, while speed cubers, yes, that's a real subculture, can now solve it in under 3 seconds, thanks to years of practice and refined techniques. This phenomenon of solving the cube quickly led to the first-ever Rubik's Cube World Championship, held in Budapest in 1982, where speed cubers showcased their lightning-fast abilities. Spin-offs like the Rubik's Snake and Pyramid brought fresh twists to the puzzle craze. And do not forget the infamous strategy of peeling off the stickers to solve the cube, a surefire way to impress no one.
Mid-1970s knit magic turned children into budding fashion designers, enabling them to knit without needles and create their own scarves, hats, and more. This innovative toy democratized the crafting process, making it accessible and enjoyable for kids. Knit magic represented a blend of creativity and self-expression, encouraging young minds to explore the possibilities of yarn and design. Although its popularity has waned in the face of changing hobbies and interests, the sense of achievement from creating something wearable remains a cherished memory, celebrating the warmth and pride of handmade fashion.
The 1980s were the golden age of VHS tapes, turning movie nights into a home experience like never before. With the rise of VCR, families could finally watch and re-watch their favorite films on demand. From classics like E.T. and Back to the Future to cult hits like The Breakfast Club, VHS tapes were the ultimate gift for movie buffs. Owning a VHS collection was like having your own blockbuster at home. But let's not romanticize it too much. Rewinding tapes after watching was a universally dreaded chore. Be kind, rewind was a moral obligation. And don't even get started on the heartbreak of a VCR chewing up your favorite tape. Interestingly, VHS wasn't the only format competing for dominance. Sony's Betamax offered better quality, but lost the format war due to shorter recording times and higher costs. By the mid-80s, VHS had solidified its place in pop culture. The clunky plastic cases may seem ancient today, but in the 80s, they were pure magic. Owning a VHS tape was about the experience and the bragging rights of having Star Wars at home. In the world of 80s school supplies, nothing reigned supreme quite like the Trapper Keeper. Created by Mead and launched in the late 1970s, this revolutionary binder hit its peak during the 1980s, becoming a must-have for students everywhere. With its vibrant designs, customizable covers, and handy Velcro flap, the Trapper Keeper was a status symbol. The genius of the Trapper Keeper lay in its organization. Built-in folders, dubbed trappers, kept loose papers secure and neatly categorized. The Velcro closure ensured that no rogue homework assignments would escape. Whether your cover featured geometric patterns, adorable kittens, or futuristic spacescapes, the Trapper Keeper was as much a fashion statement as it was a tool for academic success. But the Trapper Keeper was more than a glorified binder. For kids in the 80s, it symbolized independence and preparation. Owning one meant you were serious about school, or at least looked the part. Teachers either loved or loathed them. The iconic ripping sound of opening the binder could disrupt even the quietest classroom. The Trapper Keeper stayed an icon of 80s nostalgia, fondly remembered by anyone who doodled on its cover during a boring lecture. Its legacy lives on, proving that even school supplies can have personality.
Beloved since their debut in the early 20th century, Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls experienced a resurgence in the 70s, embodying the comfort and simplicity of earlier times. These dolls, with their iconic red yarn hair and triangle noses, became cherished companions for countless children, representing friendship and security. The handmade appeal of Raggedy Ann and Andy, along with their storybook adventures, endeared them to generations. Though modern toys have moved towards electronic and interactive features, The nostalgia tied to these dolls endures, a testament to the enduring power of storytelling and the simple joys of a soft, huggable friend.
In the mid-1980s, Casio keyboards became the gateway to music for countless aspiring musicians. Affordable, portable, and packed with features, models like the Casio SK-1 brought synthesizer-style creativity to the masses. Whether you were composing your first masterpiece or simply entertaining yourself with preset beats, a Casio keyboard was pure magic. One standout feature was the SK-1's ability to sample sounds. With a built-in microphone, users could record anything, a barking dog, a sibling's voice, and transform it into musical notes. The keyboard's variety of tones and rhythms made it endlessly entertaining, even if your songs sounded more like science fiction soundtracks. Casio keyboards also became a staple of 80s pop culture. They appeared in commercials, music videos, and movies, embodying the era's love of accessible technology. Many professional musicians credit Casio keyboards with sparking their early interest in music. We cannot forget the iconic demo song, a catchy tune every owner proudly played and then promptly butchered by trying to improvise. While today's keyboards are more advanced, there's a charm to the simplicity of a Casio. For 80s kids, a Casio keyboard under the Christmas tree was a passport to a world of music.
In an era where digital screens were a novelty, the kaleidoscope offered endless visual adventures, captivating children with its simple yet profound magic. Twisting the tube, users were greeted with an ever-changing mosaic of colors and patterns, a feast for the eyes and the imagination. This toy, enjoying renewed popularity in the 70s, served as a tangible reminder of the beauty in change and the endless possibilities that come from looking at the world from different angles. The kaleidoscope's timeless appeal lies in its ability to transform ordinary light and beads into extraordinary visions, making it a cherished keepsake that represents the joy and wonder of discovery.
Few gifts captured the imagination of the 1980s, quite like Cabbage Patch Kids. These chubby-cheeked, yarn-haired dolls were the must-have toy of the decade, sparking frenzied holiday shopping sprees and even some infamous store fights. Created by Xavier Roberts and launched in 1983, each doll came with a unique name, birth certificate, and adoption papers, making them feel less like toys and more like members of the family. What set Cabbage Patch Kids apart was their uniqueness. No two dolls were exactly alike, thanks to their hand-stitched features and varied clothing styles. This made owning one feel special and personal. Kids would line up for hours with their parents just to adopt a new friend, while others begged Santa to deliver one on Christmas morning. The dolls became a cultural phenomenon. They were featured in cartoons, carried in parades, and even inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame. Beyond the hype, they taught kids about nurturing and responsibility in their own quirky way. Cabbage Patch Kids remain iconic symbols of 80s childhood. Whether lovingly tucked under the arm of a child or nostalgically displayed by collectors, these dolls continue to evoke warm memories of a simpler time when adopting a cuddly companion made for the perfect Christmas. In the 1980s, charm necklaces and bracelets were kind of a statement. These colorful plastic chains and clip-on charms let kids and teens create wearable stories. Whether it was a miniature roller skate, a tiny telephone, or a sparkling unicorn, each charm reflected its owner's personality and interests. Popular among preteens, charm collections became a schoolyard currency, with trades and swaps dominating recess conversations. One of the best parts of charm jewelry was the hunt. Visiting mall kiosks or toy stores to find new charms was an adventure, and each edition felt like unlocking a new achievement. Neon and pastel colors ruled the scene, making these accessories vibrant and unmistakably 80s. A single necklace or bracelet could hold dozens of charms, jingling merrily with every movement. Charm jewelry was affordable, which made it accessible to almost everyone. However, parents quickly learned to dread the endless clinking noises during car rides or the inevitable requests for just one more charm. Still, their popularity endured, becoming a quintessential part of 80s fashion. Today, these playful accessories are a nostalgic treasure. They're reminders of a time when self-expression didn't come in the form of social media posts, but as jingling trinkets worn proudly around your neck or wrist.
The Telstar console by Coleco made its mark in the mid-70s as an early forerunner in the home video game console market. Offering games like tennis and hockey, Telstar brought the arcade experience into the living room with simple graphics and easy-to-use controllers. It was a glimpse into the future of entertainment, laying the groundwork for the gaming revolution to come. Although technology quickly evolved beyond Telstar's capabilities, the console holds a special place in the history of video gaming, remembered fondly by those who first experienced video games through its black and white display.
If any of this unlocked a forgotten core memory, drop it in the comments. Like the video and subscribe for more blasts from the past. No seatbelt required.